Hi everyone, it's me, Darlene. It is time to make another easy quilt block, and I hope this turns out to be easy. I have an idea in my head, I haven't tried it, and we're just going to do it together. I will stop and think along the way because I don't really know how to tell you what I'm doing. What it's going to be is, well, this much I know. We're going to need 3 colors. 2 are going to be part of the block, and 1 color is going to be strips that we're going to add on top. We're going to be doing some top stitching, but it's not going to be raw edge. We'll get to that. Let's start with what I do know. Well, I still don't know. I have to figure out how wide I want my strips. I'm going to be cutting 2 rectangles. I will be right back. I decided on cutting 2 rectangles, 3¼ inches wide by 6 inches tall. We are going to put them together like this, and with an approximate 1/4 inch seam allowance, it should make our block 6 inches square when we open it up. I don't like all trimmy things. I like things to come out the size I want them in the first place. I'm going to the machine. I will be right back. This, of course, was super easy. I just sewed 2 pieces of fabric together, and it did come out 6 inches square. It could take maybe a little bit of trimming, but we are not going to worry about that. Now we're going to do the piece that's going to do some top stitching. I don't really have much hope in this, but we're going with it. So I'm just going to make a long strip. So I'm using my whole piece of fabric here, and I'm just going to cut it 2 inches wide. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to the iron, and I'm just going to fold this in half, and I'm going to press it. Now we're going to decide on something, and you can do yours any way you want, but the whole idea of this is we want each block to be alike. I mean, you don't have to, but I want to see what kind of designs I can make with each block being identical. We're going to be sewing some of these things on here 2 ways, I think, and I haven't any idea yet exactly what I want to do. But what we're going to be doing at the machine, first we're going to sew along that raw edge, then we are going to flip and press and top stitch the other side. And in that way there are no raw edges at all. And I'm thinking of doing one this direction and one in another direction. So let me think a minute and I'll be right back. There are several ways to do this, and I'm unsure as to how I should explain it, but let me tell you 2 different ways. You're going to decide, and it doesn't really matter, it's just we want each block to be the same. You're going to just pick an angle of some kind. What I'm going to do is say I'm going to count 2 inches down on this side and 1 inch up. So if I wanted to, I can just take my fabric. This is the raw edges here. I'm taking the raw edge side, and I can look at my board and say 1, 2 inches down. I'm going to leave it sticking out of the fabric, and I'm just going to put my raw edge right on that 2 inch mark. But on this side I want to put it on the 1 inch mark in this direction, so that goes to there. Does that make sense? So the raw edge is touching 2 inches down and the raw edge is touching 1 inch up. At this point I can put a pin to hold that there. I think that's about the easiest way. The other way is you could make a mark at the 2 inch and 1 inch, and you could draw a line. Then when you go to your machine, you could put your raw edge up to that line. But I think this is easy enough. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sew with my foot on the edge of the raw edge. So it will be, giving me about 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to sew all the way down, and I'll be right back. I did that. I just sewed here. Now I'm going to flip this and press it. Just trim that a little bit. This is just an easier way to get blocks that look very complicated, yet we didn't have to cut this apart to add this piece. We're just doing it on top, yet it's nice and clean. There's no raw edge. Okay, so I pressed this up. Now I'm just going to top stitch along this edge. You can use a matching thread so it hardly shows, or you can use something bold and contrasting just because you're wild and crazy. You could also do decorative stitching. And you could do it on both sides if you wanted to make it look like it was completely top stitched on there. I'm just going ahead with the one side. At this point, I can just trim this up. I'm liking this so far. I'm just thinking it's going to allow for some funky designs on the quilt board. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this again in the opposite direction. And I could do something just on the corner. I could do something more like this, like this, like this. I could do anything I want. But the thing is again, I would want to make sure that I keep track of how many inches I'm doing so that I could easily repeat it block after block after block. Or you could absolutely do every block different if you want. This would be a really cool scrappy quilt. There's so many ideas and not enough time. Okay, so what do I want to do? I'm going to say, how about we do just the opposite? Okay, for here I did 2 and 1. So let's say here I'll do 2 down. So my raw edge that opens up is going on the 2-inch line, and then on the 1-inch line down here, 1 inch in. Let's put a pin. Just trim. I am going to go sew on the raw edge, then I will flip it and press it. I have to show you a mistake that I made. And it's very easy to do this. This is why I do not like to trim before I go to the machine. I trimmed right here, but see when I turn this over to sew, look, we're not making it all the way down. The edge stops up here. So I have to take this one off and do it again. This is important. Always leave enough of a tail, or at least fold it to see if you're going to have enough. Like if I fold this way, yes, I'm going to be good. So here I go again. I'm counting 1, 2 down. I'm putting my edge there. And I'm counting 1 in and putting my edge there. I'm going to put a pin. I'm not cutting my tail. I am going to go sew on the raw edge. Now for some reason this didn't come out the way I expected because of the way we folded up. I have this whole corner covered, but that's okay. That'll be all right. So let me trim here and let me trim here. The whole thing is that you just want to do whatever you did, you want to do that on every block. So now I'm just going to go top stitch this line. This is not at all what I envisioned, but we're going with it. That really, though, is very easy once you would know exactly where you want your lines to go. I kind of like the method. Now the big test is, how is this going to look on the quilt board? I kind of didn't want like an actual thing that looks like an X, but I always surprise myself when it goes on the quilt board. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So let's just do that, and do remember that the program you're about to see is an old software that is not available anymore. It's called Printmaster. It's not quilting software. I'm sure you can find quilting software out there that you can design your own quilts on, but that's what I'm using. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one, but we will give it a try. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe so you don't miss any more of this shit, and I'll be back with more soon. Bye!